Hello and welcome to this Tuts Plus series, Tumblr Theming 101. In this video, we're going to complete the CSS for our theme, including the media queries. Now, the first thing I want to do before we start on the media queries is to actually address the issue I have with the blog title, or the aside H1 element. Now, at the moment, everything looks fine. However, as I mentioned before, we need to try and code a little bit defensively and presume that anybody using this theme will have different data to what we've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the title here. Now, as you can see, if the title or the blog title is really long, it wraps. However, the line height property we set in the previous video comes into effect. So obviously it's not aligned with the logo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of display table and display table cell. So the first thing I need to do is I need to add another element to our markup. So go to the aside element, find H1, and then just include a span inside it. Like so, and then close it, like so. Copy that, and again, remember if you make any changes to the markup, sadly we need to copy and paste it into this editor. Click update, and then click save. Okay, and now refresh. And just inspect it to make sure, yep, and there's the change, so there's our span we've added. So I'm just going to save that. Now the next thing I want to do is I would like to take off the line height we've set on the aside H1 element, like so. And then what I'm going to say is I'm going to give this a display of table. Now again, I know there's some bad rep for display table, however I think in this case it represents a good example of using it. So we're on in display table, and then I'm going to add another rule, another property even, H1 span. And what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to say display table cell. Okay, and on the H1 we need to also add table layout fixed, and this will make the cell expand the width of the table. And display table like so, and then do vertical align, and then do middle like so. Now the final little part of the puzzle here is to add a break word property. So we'll do word wrap and then break word like so, and then click save. Once Dropbox has finished syncing, refresh the page and then have a look at what we've got. So at the moment, as you can see, it's nearly there. The only issue we've got is the height. So on the aside H1, we want to set a height that matches that of the image. Now the reason I'm doing it like this is because the user may not display an avatar. They may just want to display a blog title. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set a property using the custom variables that will print this height and this padding if the user is using an avatar, which I will describe how to do in a later video. So save that, click refresh. Okay, so now as you can see, we've got that vertical line title again with the avatar, and if we have a really small window, as you can see, it's on 2 lines and it's roughly in the middle of that image. So that's worked out quite nice. Whilst I'm here, I'm actually just going to update the title of this. Like so. Click save. Now I'm just going to refresh this page, try and get rid of this error or this message here. And there you have it. So as you can see now, that's nicely sat on 2 lines and it's aligned with the image. And again, just refresh there. So once we have a screen that's wide enough, it will always collapse to 1 line, which has worked out nicely. The only other real thing I want to do now is I want to do something with these pages. I think the best bet would to probably float them or get them both on the same line and put a border above and below just to show there's some separation between this content here and this content down here. Again, whilst I'm here, I'm just going to clean up anything that I don't feel is needed. So I don't need text align left because it'll text align left already. And again, these properties and more than likely these properties are going to change later on. So we can leave them in the media query. I'm just going to move that width up to this main rule here, like so. So again, my 0 pixel media query is just stuff that I feel is going to change later on, so I can leave it in there. So for instance, I feel that the border radius is going to change because we were originally going to go back to the large image. Again, with the width and the height and the position as well, we'll put that back to relative later on. And the same with all of them. I'm just going to move the break word up to the side H1. Okay, so that's some cleanup done. So as I said, what I'm going to do with these two now is I'm going to put a border on the top and the bottom. So again, it's going to be a side UL. Which is already here. And I do border, top, 1 pix, solid, and then I'm going to take the post color. So that's the border for that we've used on the post, the border bottom. Like so, and then we'll do one for the top. I mean for the bottom even, sorry. Like so, and then click save. Okay, so we've got a nice little border on them. And then the final little thing I want to do is I just want to see if we can do display inline, see how they turn out. Like so, so that's pretty nice. And again, you could do one or two things here really. You could just do text align and then put them in the center. Like so. And again, remember, use Firebug, edit the HTML you've already got, add a few elements, because again, it's not going to be 100% sure how many of these little page links people are going to add. So I'm quite happy putting them in the center. So I'll do text align center, and then again aside UL li display block. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm just going to add some padding. And again, I'm going to copy the padding value that I used here, so 15. Now again, really, I should be following the line height that I previously set. So if we make this, say, let's do 23 times 1.5 is 34. And then if we do the padding here at 23, like so, and again, just do the padding there at 23. Save it, see what it looks like. If it doesn't work, reduce it. Okay, so I think that's pretty clear. The one thing you could do is that you could add in a divider between the two, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a margin on both sides of the UL. So I'm just going to do margin, I mean the LI even, margin 0, do 5 pixels like so. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this URL and I'm going to open up my browser. Oops. I'm just going to paste that in. Then I'm going to open up this little tool called Ripple, which I will post a link to in the description. So what Ripple does is it allows me to have a look at the site inside an emulated device. So what I'm looking really to do here is to see how much room the head is taking. And to me at the moment there's too much space here. So what I'm going to do is just going to go back. And I'm going to reduce this value. And I think I'm going to half it, so say 12, like so. Click save. Refresh here. Okay, so that feels a bit better. And whilst I'm here, I'm just going to double check. So we're putting, what are we putting on the margin there? 23. Okay, let's have a look what it looks like with 12. Again, let's have a look what we can do here. Put that down to 12. Okay. So I think at the moment I would leave them two values. I would just change that to 12 like so. And again, just go down and see what the foot looks like. See already, I think this would be okay. I would like to make that shorter, so what I'm going to do is go in and make that 12 as well. And then just going to give this a refresh. So as I said, we've tightened up these little pages, these page links, and they seem to be a lot better. Now the nice thing about Ripple is obviously I can change quite quickly what device I'm looking at. Now obviously I'm not stating that this is a replacement for testing on real devices. I have an Android, an iPod, an iPhone, a Nexus 7 on my desk at the moment, and obviously as I'm doing my code I'm testing on these devices as well. But just to get a quick feel of how the theme looks, which is quite a handy little tool. So this is apparently an iPhone 4. That seems okay. Let's get the iPhone 5 because it's got that little bit of extra screen. Okay, so yeah, that's looking pretty good. And now the final what I'll do is I'm going to just go for the Nexus 7. Like so. So again, even on the Nexus 7 with that wideness, it still looks pretty nice. And if you go landscape again, it looks still pretty nice. Now obviously this layout is going to adjust at a certain width, and that's what we're going to work on next. I'm just going to have a quick look at the iPad. Okay, so again, on the iPad, everything looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with the way these things have laid out. Quite happy with the way these pages have worked out as well. So the next thing to do now is to look at this layout when there is enough room for this side element to move. So over here. So back to the code we go. So if we go to the design, what we stated is, just get my layers back up. So what we stated here is that this aside element will sit on the left and this main element will go on the right when there is enough room for them both to sit nice against each other. So what I want to do is I just want to get a rough idea of how wide this actually needs to be. So 880 pixels. Okay, I'm just going to measure what the padding is here. It was 40, right, okay. So what I'm going to do now Going to create another media query, like so. And then we're going to do some maths because maths is fun. And what we're going to say is the aside needs to be 220 pixels plus 40 pixels padding on the left and 40 pixels padding on the right, which is 80 pixels. So in total, we need 300 pixels for the aside to sit nicely. Now, for the main element, again, we need 500 because that's what our limit is, and then another 40 and another 40. Which gives us 580. Now, we need to take in consideration any padding we've already added to the wrapper, so that's 20 pixels. So on the wrapper, we're going to bump that up to 40 pixels, like so. Just close this off. So the new max width of the wrapper will be 880 pixels. And the padding on that should be 0 and 40 pixels. Just go up to the top, just confirm. Okay, so that's been set like so. Now again, this is another one of those things, because that width isn't going to change, I can put that rule back up into the standard CSS, just put that up to there like so. Okay, now the next thing I want to work on is the aside. So the aside here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that this is no longer the width of 100%. It's going to be a width of 280 pixels. Remember, because we're going to have 240 pixels in, because we're going to have this 40 pixels padding, this 40 pixels space here. That's just going swimmingly. So there we go. And we're going to do padding 0, 0, so it's padding 0, 40 pixels, 0, 0, like so. And then what we're going to say to the main is, again, just go up and check what you've already written. I'm going to leave the max width, and we're going to change its width to 500 pixels. And again, we're just going to double check to see if we've already wrote these two elements to float, which I think we have. Yeah, float and float, so that's fine. So what we're going to do on here is we're going to set this up to be 540. And again, the padding will be 0, 0, 0, 40 pixels, like so. So essentially what we're doing here is, rather than setting padding left and right, we're going to let the wrapper take this 40 pixels padding here and this 40 pixels padding here, which is 80, and then inside it will have a space of 800 pixels. And then what we're going to do is the aside will actually go from here to here, so it'll be 220 pixels wide with 40 on the side, so that should actually be 260, like so. And then what we're essentially going to do here is we're going to say this should be 40 and then this should be 500, so that would be 540 in total. So again, just check them values. 800 in total we should have here. So 260 at 540 is 800. And then click save. Now if we do a refresh, as you can see now, the sidebar comes into play, or the aside element. So we are pretty close to actually almost being there with the design, with a couple of simple changes. So what we need to do now is we probably need to go in and finish off these little things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to check this padding, or this margin. So that's gone up to 60 now. So originally in the first media query we gave the aside a margin 30. So what we're doing now is we're going to bump that up to 60. Like so. And go back to the design. Okay. And then if we go back to the design here, we also have this at 30. Sorry, this value should be 60. Currently it's at 30. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that onto the main, I believe. No, I'm going to add that onto the posts. Now, the reason I'm doing it on the posts is because we actually increase the drop, or the space between each post, to 60 top and bottom. And as we already said it here, like so. I'm actually just going to drop this value back down to 60. I'm going to drop these values back down to 30. And I'm going to set these back at 15 and 15. Now, it's a strange one, but I think that would make sense because it'll follow the design. So there you go. So now you can see we've now got the space in, which is starting to match what the design's got. I'll just take these zones off. So the next thing to do would be to finish setting up this aside, because obviously our main element is pretty much done apart from some spacing here and on the pagination element and on the footer element. So let's get this aside wrapped up. So the first thing I want to do on this aside is I want to bring these H5s back, because remember we hid them, which was kind of naughty. So let's get them back into play. There we go. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to take off the padding, the borders and the padding on the UL. Like so. And then on the ULLI, I want to take off the inline block and set it inline for the time being. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got going on here. So block helps us out here. Okay, so block helps us out, so let's put that to a block. Like so, and then again remember we need to reset the text align to left. Okay, so that's the page is now starting to look the same. Again, just double check. So there's still padding on these LIs. Oh no, sorry, there's margin on these LIs, so let's reset that. Okay, so that's the pages in. Let's go back to the design. So with regards to the last couple of things is we need to sort out the avatar. So again, try and just follow the rules that you've written so far. So I did image first, so let's get that next in. Just makes it easier if anybody else comes to read your CSS or media queries. So I'm going to set this at 128 pixels, height 128 pixels. And then what we're going to do is set the border radius, and we're just going to take out this position absolute, put its position relative. So again, that would be 64, which is half the height or the width. Basically, if you want to make a square a circle, your border radius is the half the height and width values. So we want to make that position relative. And again, you can display inline or float this one left. Like so. And again, just go up to your side and your image and just double check that you haven't set anything for it, and I haven't. So that's that done, and then just do refresh. Okay, and then finally we want to sort out the title. So back into the media query, side H1. So we're going to change it from display table to display block, like so, and then side H1 span, and again display block because it's currently set to table cell. Display isn't going to work, so display block. Again, let's see how close we are. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at what we've got going on here. Okay, so let's remove the height, and I believe we'll probably end up having to float this as well. Alright, okay, so let's remove that padding. And I think we should be able to remove the float as well. Okay, so we can remove the display block as well, which is kind of nice. Okay, so remove display, remove that, remove that. Sometimes it's just trial and error with these things, especially when you use something like display table and display table cell. So that's worked out pretty nicely. We've got to take the padding value off, or reset the padding, like so. Okay, now let's go back to the design and just get our guides up, and let's see what the space here is. So that should be 15. So let's put a margin, like so. Okay, and then go back to the design, let's see what space here. So that's 30, and then underneath these pages, they should be both 15. So let's go to a H5, and then let's do margin, bottom, 15 pixels. Okay, just have a look what's going on here. Yep, okay, so I've already set that before, so we can take that off. It just must be a white space difference. Okay, I wanted to remove display block and just put display inline. And that, I believe, should be everything we need. I'll set that property back. Sorry about that. Now, let's just have a look at the design. Now, the last couple of things I need to do now is just increase the spacing on the footer. So, footer, padding, 30 pix 0. Now, remember that We also had to reset the post footer value. However, I think this should be alright from the previous media query, but let's just double check that. Okay, yep. And just go in and just double check that the space is correct. Yep, so the previous rule still had more, was still more specific, so this padding 0 still remained. And I think that is all of the CSS for the time being for the theme. So there's a single, that's the permalink page, which we'll discuss later on. This is the index, and then this is the search page. So we'll tidy up the search page in another video. But for the time being, I think that is everything. And again, just double check. So everything seems okay. Let's just have a look what it looks like on one of our devices. So on the iPad, if you are viewing in landscape, you'll get the sidebar. If you're viewing in portrait, you won't, which is the desired effect. And let's just check on the old Nexus 7. Okay, so again, if you're viewing in landscape, I mean in portrait even, you don't get the sidebar. If you're viewing in landscape, you'll get the sidebar. Now, I'm not 100% sure how that is actually going to work because of the way that the pixel density works. Like on my test device, I don't get that. So again, take these online viewers, etc., with a pinch of salt. So that is everything. We have now completed the CSS and the responsive part of our theme, which I would like to thank you all for sticking with me through. Obviously, the aim of this tutorial series is to teach you how to code a Tumblr theme, but obviously you can't have a Tumblr theme that's not responsive nowadays. So again, thank you for listening. I hope you'll join us in the next video. In the next video, we'll actually start moving the theme over. We'll take the CSS, we'll actually put it in line on the theme, and then we'll start looking at adding options to the theme so users can customize stuff like colors, they can customize the layout, etc. So I hope you can join me then.